see.
Portions of the following program may be unsuitable for younger or more sensitive viewers. Viewer discretion is advised.
Disclaimer! Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976. Allowances made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news, reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Non-profit education or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use. This video was made for entertainment purposes and is transformative in nature.
Kind of boy seems innocent, Boogie. Got everybody on the post thinking he's a strong black buck. White boys envy his strength, his speed, power in his swing. Then this colored champion lets those same white boys call him Shine or Sambo.
Whoa, Lord.
And he just smiles.
Dream about the time when I was little boy.
Can't talk.
The night would get
Can barely read or write his own name. And don't care. He'd tell you they like him. Or that colored folks ain't supposed to have but so much sense.
Yes, he would.
You know the damage one ignorant Negro can do. We were in France in the First War. We'd won decorations. But the white boys had told all them French gals that we had tails. Then they found this ignorant colored soldier. Paid him to tie a tail to his ass and run around half naked making monkey sounds. They put him on a big round table in the Cafe Napoleon. Put a reed in his hand. Crown on his head, blanket on his shoulders, and made him eat bananas in front of all them Frenchies. Oh, the white boys danced that night. Passed out leaflets with that boy's picture on it. Called him Moonshine, King of the Monkeys. And when we slit his throat, you know that fool asked us what he had done wrong. My daddy told me we got to turn our backs on his kind, Wilkie. Close our ranks to the chitlins, the collard greens, the cornbread style. We are men, soldiers. And I don't intend for our race to be cheated out of its place of honor and respect in this war because of fools like CJ. You watch everything he does. Everything.
You said your people have been fighting for 400 years.
Man, your peoples too.
So I just want you to explain what you mean by that.
You know what I'm talking about. Y'all all know what I'm talking about, man. Don't sit up here and try to bait and not know what I'm talking about. Y'all know what the I talk about when I say these things. Your people too.
Explain it. Not everybody knows what you're talking about.
Radio Raheem, I don't have to explain what's understood, man. You know what I mean by that. You know what I said by that. I ain't got to go further. And if anybody don't understand that, then God be with them. Go look up the history. Go look up the history. Don't everybody believe in Google? Go Google that. See what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about, man. You know what. I dare you to sit up there and say, explain. You know what I'm talking about, man. He's fighting people. You know we've been fighting 400 and still fighting to this day. To this day. To this day. You just sit here, you don't know.
Various groups, feminists, gay rights groups, and those who are defending immigrants have commandeered the black civil rights experience.
Yes.
What do you mean by that?
Yes, I'm glad you asked that because I think it's one of the most important points of the book. I mean, I think the way liberals have treated blacks like children, and many of their policies have been harmful to blacks. At least they got the beneficiary group right. We do have to, I mean, we shouldn't. There is the legacy of slavery and Jim Crow laws. We don't owe the homeless. We don't owe feminists. We don't owe women who are desirous of having abortions, but that's, or gays who want to get married to one another. That's what civil rights has become for much of the left. They dropped the blacks after 5 minutes.
Immigrant rights are not civil rights?
No, I think civil rights are for blacks. We done to the immigrants. We owe black people something. We have a legacy of slavery. Immigrants haven't even been in this country. Democrats are dropping the blacks and moving on to the Hispanics because they're a larger group of Hispanics now. But could I just say to Jorge, I hate to disagree with you when you're attacking President Obama, but I think the point on immigration is you can have open borders or you can have a welfare state. You cannot have both.
Men and women and children were brought to our shores in chains, subjected to unimaginable cruelty. My nation's original sin was that period.
And since the American white man has used his control over the press and over the textbooks and over all forms of media to make it appear that he has done us a favor by bringing us here and enslaving us, rewrite history or retell history. And since the white man can't dispute this truth, it's not hate to say that we were kidnapped and brought here, it's truth. It's not hate to say that we were Jim Crow, discriminated and segregated, it's truth. It's not hate to say that the Supreme Court, which is the highest court in this country, came up with a hypocritical desegregation decision 9 years ago, which they haven't enforced yet. That's not hate.
Remember, the enemy has only images and illusions, behind which he hides his true motives. Destroy the image, and you will break the enemy.
Welcome to the most hated show in the black corner of YouTube. I am your host, MrBlowsurmind, and this is WeUpReport. First and foremost, I want to say what's good to my fam, my day ones, the original day ones. What's good to everybody? I want to say special thanks out there to Bernard Thomas. Know you out there, brother. I see you, so don't think that I don't see what you keep doing. That's foremost and one. But I also got to get this one out. Also, let me give out to this brother here who does what he do each and every time. Me, my family, and those of us who do WeUpReport. Give a special thanks to Mr. Spencer 0620. Once again, coming with another cash app from the last show. We always going to give that brother a shout in his due when he does and when he continues to do, right? Now, so let's go ahead and what we're going to get in today because, again, if you're a passerby, this is the most hated show in the black corner of YouTube. Having to go down the aisle, see something to make you feel some kind of way. Remember, the motto of my show is the truth. Don't need no partner. So what is your topic for today, Mr. Blowsurmind? Some of y'all might have seen my thumbnail, so you know we're going to go ahead and show what I'm talking about. The all-out replacement agenda. Let me say that one more again. The all-out replacing agenda. What do you mean by that, Mr. Blowsurmind? Well, there's a concerted effort by some of those who are behind the curtain, what we call the Wizard of Oz, those who know about that. And it seems that everywhere you turn in, they seem to be trying to establish what was original, who was original, and trying to replace it with somebody who they're trying to replace with. Let me say that one more again. There seems to be a concerted effort by those who are the wizard behind the curtain, are trying to re-establish history, people who were originally to replace it with somebody of their own preference. And so as I see more and more about this, I thought that some of the things that I have seen over time on some of the current events is kind of like them putting out messages that seems to want to articulate that in a coded way. So for those who are avid watchers of my show, and what we do is we do current events and we put the pieces together to give you the insight for how I see it. You may agree, you may disagree, but this is my show. So anyway, we're going to delve into that, and I'm going to show you the things that I've seen over a period of time, and I'm going to show you where I say there is a replacing agenda, but who is they really trying to replace? They say themselves, but then let's see what they've really been talking about. So, again, we watch a lot of news over here, but I'm going to go ahead and show you this, and after this, we'll get into it. Check this out. I'll be right back.
Folks like me who were Caucasian of European descent, for the first time in 2017, will be in an absolute minority in the United States of America. Absolute minority. Fewer than 50% of the people in America from then and on will be white European stock. That's not a bad thing. That's a source of our strength.
Well, here's Anna Navarro from her time as a Harvard fellow. This is what she wrote, quote, "The demographic trends show that the minority vote in the United States will continue to grow in numbers and influence. Unless you're under the influence of hallucinogens, it is hard to imagine future scenarios where the Republican Party can win national elections." That piece, by the way, is called "Old White Straight Male Voters Ain't What They Used to Be," end quote. Here's a Politico piece from 2013. We could go on for hours, by the way, but here's this, quote, "Immigration reform could be a bonanza for Democrats. The Democratic Party," the piece said, are, quote, "pumping as many as 11 million new Hispanic voters into the electorate a decade from now in ways that could produce an electoral bonanza for Democrats and cripple Republican prospects in many states they now win easily," end quote. Here's another example, also from 2013. The Center for American Progress announced that, quote, "supporting real immigration reform that contains a pathway to citizenship for our nation's 11 million undocumented immigrants is the only way to maintain electoral strength in the future." Oh, great replacement theory, anyone? These people are lunatics. They're telling you what their strategy is. When you note it, they scream at you and call you a criminal. In 2018, the New York Times published an editorial called "We Can Replace Them." Just in case subtlety is not your thing. Quote, "Right now, America is tearing itself apart as an embittered white conservative minority clings to power, terrified of being swamped by a new multiracial polyglot majority." Right.
All right. So that was the Carlson Tucker show when he was talking about the great replacement theory. They were saying it was a theory, right? They said it was a theory, but not really a theory. It's really something that is manifesting itself slowly but surely. But then there's their perspective of how they see it. But we, as some of us say FBA, ADOS, indigenous, Black Americans more. I say Black Americans, that umbrellas all of us. We all come from that same history. But this does not say that those who are not part of that, this does not pertain to you as well. But us in particular, it has a lot to do with us. But so anyway, we started off with showing you what Joe Biden, what he said back in 2015, for those who never heard him and didn't know he said that. He stated in that, as you heard in that video clip, he talked about white minority by 2017. Now, remember, in 2015, he's the vice president of Barack Obama. And so he was saying at a conference that they was talking about during that particular time, that it's 2017, that there will be a white minority from that point on. Now, many people, again, you may not like race, or you think that race has no relevance in none of the things that is happening, and that it's a construct and it has no reality. Well, to each his own. Whatever how you perceive it, that's your own business. But if white folks are believing that they are falling into a minority position by the year 2017 on, what do you think are the plans? And what have they been instilling, knowing that that day was coming? And who does that affect as time goes on? Stay tuned to the show, and I'm going to show you. And we're going to deal with also what we've seen in the beginning of this, that dissertation of the beginning of the show, which you've seen those two individuals doing what they're doing. But we'll touch that at the proper time later on. But so let's look at, now again, remember, Joe Biden is claiming that from 2015 to 2017, whites will become a minority, and that there was also the fact that this also goes along with this, that he, for those who may not know, go to that one for me, please. All right, so let's break down what Tucker was saying. Now, Tucker was saying in that video, you see the words that he spoke, right? Now they're saying that the numbers show if they kept going at the rate that they were talking about, this influx of people, that white folks won't be able to win a national election. Let me say that one more again. If the numbers that they were having a problem with keep on influxing into this country, that this would make white folks not be able to win national elections. This became a big concern, right? That they're mentioning this, right? If you see that news clip, you see that, so he's not mentioning that just to be for fool's talk. That's mentioning that because there's some relevancy and there's a concern by somebody and some people, right? Now, you may say, well, Joe Biden said that, but let me show you the article that when he talked about that. That was a flashback, the article when Biden praised constant, unrelenting streams of immigration into the United States. This is an article, so you can't say that I'm making this up. Here is what they say, receipts, they call it, right? That's the receipt showing you that, right? Matter of fact, let me show you what it was said in the archives of there. There's a second thing, and again, this is a conversation that Joe Biden was having with the Asian, I think, ex-president on a plane, and they was having a conversation. And in that conversation, he was saying that, talking about the black box. Now, you know, when a plane crashes, the thing that they seek for is to get the last minutes or so before the crash that's going to be recorded. So they were making an analogy in that conversation as to the black box. And as you see on your screen there, talking about the second thing in that black box is an unrelenting stream of immigration, nonstop. Folks like me who are Caucasians, and this is the part you heard in the clip, but didn't show that particular part, of European descent. For the first time in 2017, we be an absolute minority in the United States of America. Absolute minority. Fewer than 50% of the people in America from then on will be white European stock. That's not a bad thing. That's a source of our strength. Now, so with that being said, then there was a concern. There has been a concern, and it didn't start in 2015. It had been going on. Now, those who are avid watchers of my show, I told you back on April 1st, 2014, I made a video that went 300,000. Now, you probably just look over here and go through my archive, and you will see that I can't get 100 views. But I've been around 11 years. But I can't get 100 views is because what am I speaking about that somebody don't want people to talk or hear about? But I made a video back in 2014, April 1st, talking about the extinction of the white race. Now, I wasn't talking about we as black people going out killing people. Now, it was nothing about that. It was talking about the demographic catastrophe that was happening amongst them, when this was the first video that was out there talking about that when there was nobody else. I was the first one who was on it, and they penalized me and put me in the corner so I cannot be heard ever since 2014. I have been on these numbers for the last 9 years. You get what I'm saying? That's show you the power of what it was at the time. So anyway, but the point I'm trying to say here is that they said there's a replacement happened, but who was really the replacement? And then if they were feeling that they were being replaced, well, what was the machinations and what was the schemes that they were going to do to, let's say, balance them from being in that position? So let's look at some of this stuff. Let me look at the other part that he said here. Now, he goes on, he said, as you see on the screen, he said that's what he's quoted. So basically what he's saying, there's a legislation in the work that was created that would become law, that will have the effect that this country, well, let's say they said that this effect of this law that's going to come into effect will have a effect about 20 to 30 years, which is a generation, right? 20 years to 30 years is a generation. So what is he talking about? What are they talking about when they're talking about this influx? Again, this was immigration. What was immigration really used for? A lot of people think that when you talk about, especially in the black corner, they say that the people who, let's say, for instance, when you say Tariq Nasheed, and you say he talks about tethers and things like that, right? There's some of our people who have a problem with that because they say that we are against our own people or people of descent that come from, whether Caribbeans or come from the continent of Africa, and that we say that we don't have no kinship to them. I don't think that's really what it is. I think what it is that when you in my house, if I come to your house as a guest, there's certain things that as a guest, when I come in your house, I had to adhere to because I respect your house. And if I disrespect you in your house, who wouldn't check me? Who wouldn't check you? Now, if that's a problem with checking people because they become unruly, disrespectful, saying things outwardly that really, when we look at this, you should be on code, as they say, with us, but never openly say things to say that you're glad that we were in the position we are. We shouldn't be getting anything when it comes to anything, when it comes to reparations and the whole nine, right? So I'm going to keep going. I'm going to show you as we go on more to this show. I'm going to show everything that I'm talking about, right? Now, the next part, he goes on here and he says that this is what Tucker says, right? They're talking about those who were part of the saying of these undocumented immigrants, right? They always talk about the 11 million undocumented, but they've been saying that for years, right? We've been seeing that for years. If you've been watching this show over here, we even showed the time when they had the van that had about 30 or 40 in that little van, and we was like, damn, 30, 40 was packed up in there, but it had a traffic accident that revealed that. So if one happened with 30 or 40, how many have been coming in here? And again, this is not divisive. This is not about anti-hating against immigrants. We as Black people, FBA, ADOS, Attaches Indigenous, Moors, umbrella term I call Black Americans, these are the things that we have to be on the watchtower watching. Somebody is here to replace us. And if we want to sit here and act this, or we want to play kumbaya, and these things are not relevant to us, then one day when you wake up, you're gonna find out you've been replaced, and then again, your children and offsprings and those to come gonna look at us today and be like, what was we doing in our day and age when all this was manifesting? What did you do? You act as if you didn't notice this, or is it many of us want to act as if, like, when we talk about our ancestry in this country, when we talk about the 4,441,830, which is our ancestors, for those of you who are from the Black American descendant of slaves in this land, when that number, that's who we descend from, right? And where we are today as the descendants of that, and then those those who are going to come after us, when they have to live in that condition, they're going to look at us in history and be like, what did you do? What was y'all standing about? You're going to be accursed to them. So me as a watcher on the wall, I just have to say it for like I see it. I got to call a ball, a strike. So he goes on, Tucker, and he's talking about how those numbers, when they fall to the Democrat, which they say they're going to create a serious injury to the party that represent who? Americans. Now, when they use that term Americans, many of y'all think that American means you, right? But you got a hyphenation on your American. You got Black in front of your American. This one to have Chinese in front of his American. This one to have, let's say, the Chinese. This one to have Spanish. This one say Puerto Rican, right? But who's considered himself as the American? He the one that don't have the hyphenation on that. So when they speaking in these codes and in these terms, they're speaking to a certain demographic, a certain group of people. And so when they speak to these people, they're talking openly in front of your face that many of you who do not, let's say, think that what happened to your ancestors is still today. And the thing I always say is, those who disagree with me, tell me the day, the month, and the year that it all stopped. You want to tell me 1865 and emancipation? Tell me what emancipation is, and I'll tell you it didn't do nothing. It was just nothing but announcement. Tell me the 13th, 14th, 15th Amendment, and I'll tell you, did it really pass? Did you really study it? Or you think what you know? Or do you know what you know? Right? So again, that's what we do over here as WeUpReport. We come and we break these things down. We're not like these other shows. You're not gonna never see me bickering back and forth, going at it as a grown man about things about what really we should be in here doing and getting distracted. So I'm getting tired of seeing that. So I think that somebody need to come out here. And there's a couple of brothers and sisters who are still saying on that point, but there's many stuff that's out here that's just really, really a waste of time. But anyway, so he goes on and he says this. There is a need to focus on the immigration reform to make an easier road to get those people to be able to, let's say, bring in the dominant, I guess they say the dominant strength for the future election. So what he's saying is basically there's a need to focus on this because what's going to end up happening is these numbers are going to grow where they're going to be to the point that they're going to be dominant, that they're, again, when you're talking about politics, politics is power. Those who get to rule and get to do the legislation get to rule everybody else. And them, as their demographics are lessening, how do they prepare? As Joe Biden told you in 2015, then in 2017, they will become a minority. This is not everyday talk. This is not politically correct talk either. But that's what we do over here. So now the thing is, and lastly, what he said here is that as I speak right now, the United States is they're torn, right? There's a tug of war going on between them. And as new methods to hold power and this new minority majority immigrant population is evident, as he said, we can replace. Who are they talking about? Who's being replaced? And what is the scheme for those who felt like this was becoming a threat to them? Well, let's look at it. Let's look at really what they're talking about. So somebody might say, man, what is he talking about? He's talking about a whole bunch of gibberish. Right? That's gibberish talk, right? But let me show you this and be right back.
Bring in Tulsi Gabbard. She's a former presidential candidate and a Fox News contributor. And you can go down the list of the cabinet, Tulsi. I think we're a little tired of the diversity stuff.
Yeah, you know, Jesse, what we're seeing here is their philosophy, identity politics. And this is one of the main reasons why I left the Democratic Party, because you're seeing how their agenda of identity politics is directly undermining the traditional democratic values that were expressed so beautifully and clearly by Dr. Martin Luther King, that we should judge each other not based on the color of our skin, but based on our character. And yet, as you have displayed here over and over with example after example, they're proud to be judging people, hiring people, selecting people based on race, which is really, let's be clear how serious of a problem this is. It's based on genetics, race, based on your blood, your genes. And where do we see that connection? Well, these are the very same geneticist core principles embodied by Nazism and Adolf Hitler. And this should be something that is sickening and alarming to every single Democrat and every single American. We have seen where this philosophy can lead. The American people deserve so much more. We need leaders who will elect, who will select people based on their character, how committed they are to the Constitution and the capabilities that they bring to actually do the job that they're hired to do. Most importantly, their heart. Do they have a heart and commitment for serving the American people? As you said, putting service above any selfish interest, actually waking up every day saying, how can I best serve the American people who I'm charged to serve in whatever job it may be?
You're saying the focus on genetics is in a way similar to what was going on in Germany.
You look at the core values and core principles of Adolf Hitler and Nazism. What is it based on? It's based on genetics. This is that philosophy of geneticism and discriminating against people based on their genes. And that's the issue here, really, when you cut to the core of it. When they're standing there saying, hey, we are proud to be selecting people solely based on race, That is alarming to me on so many levels. You see them, we were going to select someone based on their race, based on their gender, these immutable characteristics that we're born with. This goes against, again, the very vision our founders had for us. It goes against traditional democratic values. And most of all, the American people deserve to know that those in positions of power and leadership are putting their interests first, regardless of race or gender or religion or politics or anything else. That's the responsibility of our leaders, and that's what we, the American people, deserve.
Yeah, I'm not sure about the German thing, but I think you're right on this point. They care about what the administration looks like, but they don't care about what we look like. And yes. We're out here saying, hey, we need this, we need that. Can you... And they're not even looking at us. They're just looking at themselves
first.
Right, exactly.
They're putting themselves first.
Exactly.
And that alone is a huge disqualifier.
Exactly. All right. Thank you very much, Tulsi. Have a great
It was Jesse Waters and Tulsi Gabbard, right? And, you know, she is a European Samoan. She's a European Samoan from Hawaii. Was part of the Democrat that she ended up turning into becoming a Republican. And that she is actually a potential president candidate. And so you see that they were having a conversation, and in that conversation that they were talking about diversity. They tired of diversity. Now again, they're talking openly, right? Now again, they speaking, but those of you who be in the audience, maybe you not have enough, let's say, IQ to discern that the code that is being spoken between the two. But anyway, so the diversity just means when you talk with white folks, when you say diversity, it means everybody but them, right? Let me say that one more again. When you say the word diversity, it's everybody but white folks, right? That's why I said we're tired of diversity. They're tired of it, right? Now, wait a minute. Now, the thing is, remember what Tucker said. Tucker was pointing out the fact that this replacement and that this influx of people that they, again, the Democrat Republican game that they use, and that some of our people fall in thinking that, you know, if I be a Republican, that certain, you know, ideologies of that Republican Party that fits what I look at. But you got to remember the inception of this experiment that they created, and the two parties, when you talk about it, what were their agendas and what did it have to do with you in part of it? Now, many of you can say what the words say, but I'm saying whatever was in the beginning of that game, that's who it was made for. Just because they included, and then people use terms like melting pot, they weren't talking about anything outside of being white. They were only talking about their people coming from Europe, coming to the United States, being acclimated in. For us, those are the 4,441,830. We were not considered part of that game. And everything that came after that, that's why you see a lot of them use us to get how they move in here, because this game originated with them. And when you understand what the 13 colonies, and then how they really just expanded the 13 colonies and created the United States under the same constitution that was made originally for the 13 colonies. Do I need to say that again? Do I need to say that again? That 13 colonies was just really expanded throughout what you call the United States, and what was originally set with that constitution for them applies to this day. So that's why as we go on, you're going to see that how when people start to revert and talk about, matter of fact, some of the things she just said. Let's go into that. Let me go into that, right? Because they tired of diversity, right? And they talking about this, and then who are they talking about when they say they? What, you know what I'm saying? They. Who are they talking about? They, right? So you would think that they're talking about the Democrats, right? Right? But you done heard the term two wings on one bird, right? You know what that means? One bird and two wings, meaning that wing represent that same bird as that other wing represent that same bird. And that same bird is the same as both of them, correct? So when they talk about they, who are they talking about? The identity, philosophy, politics, right? Because again, you got to remember that immigration that they're bringing in here into this country, somebody had the grandiose idea that we needed, because we understood that the catastrophic of our demographics was going to collapse. we needed a replacement. When you look at the census that came out in 2020 and going back, what was different between this census and anything going back was the fact that you had people who had been deemed all around the world as, let's say, blacks, color, people of color, were able now to come here. And when you look at the census, people from North Africa, people from the Middle East, and Europe, right? These people can check the box and become white. Am I right or am I wrong? Right? So that means that you have some people who come from Morocco, people from Libya, people from Tunisia, people from Algeria, right? Which is North Africa, can come to this land and check the box and be considered white. Okay? So they changed the demographic, or they changed the definition of what is white. And I know there will be some people who say, well, white don't got nothing to do with color. White has to do with a status. Okay, well, that's what they did. They allowed them to get the status of white, which white represent what was in the beginning. So this was what immigration was coming to do. Immigration was bringing in so that they can use their numbers, so that they can now, as they know their demographics are changing, that they're now going to use them as part to make you say, or make you believe that they are a majority. But what then happened is these groups that's now coming in here have their own politics. They got their own mindset on their own cut of the pie, and now it's becoming a problem. You feel what I'm saying? All right. So let's look at some of the stuff it's saying. So again, diversity about everything, right? So that's what this is kind of pissing them off. And so they said they're proud of hiring people by race, blood, genetics. Okay, now think about this. Those of us who are part of the 4,441,830, which is Black American descendants of slaves, and we the descendants today. With that being said, now think about what we've had to overcome and endure and still persistently to this day, because I'm not one of them to tell you that things have changed, that things ain't the things are past. That's for other people to tell you that. I'm not here to tell you that. But what I'm here to tell you is, when you look at that and look at that history and look at where we gone and where we at, if you say in 1965 at the beginning when we started to get civil rights, which is nonsense, right? Voting right in 64, and then they allowing immigration to come in at the same time. How can you as black, how can we as black folks benefit when we finally did all this, going through all this from what you call from slavery to Reconstruction, right, to Jim Crow, to the civil rights, and then as soon as you start to get some of this, you influx everybody else in. And then you have people who sit here and then they blame black folks and say the conditions that happen to us is our lack thereof enthusiasm to want to do and build for our own. Everybody got every excuse, and I'm not here to say that we're not supposed to take any responsibilities for none of the stuff that we've done or what we need to do, but we also are going like trout going against the stream. We're going against the current, and there's always a current that's trying to keep you back. That's not an excuse to say that we don't keep trying to move and keep going forward, but the point I'm trying to say is you cannot ignore that is part of it. And then if you build it on top and putting more on top of my back, which is just bringing more people in, you still make it harder for us, right? And then people looking at us and saying that, like I hear some of these shows, they'll talk about how, well, black people, all we had to do was this. Like you have some people who might be in their mid-30s, and they look and in hindsight and they say, all we had to do is this, and we could have just did. It sounds like that's the simple answer. And then what you have to ask yourself is, do you think we as black people never thought of none of the stuff that y'all thinking about? You think this is the first time that idea has come up, that the first time we thought about putting our money together and trying to buy and build? If you think you the first time, or you think this is the first time this ever came up, or is there a current against the trout that keeps him from doing? That doesn't mean you can't try or that you're not doing. Is that a reality? And if it is a reality, right, then that's just part of the game. But we can't deny it. It's like in the movie of The Matrix when you see Neo fighting all the agents. Even the one couldn't even fight all the agents. He had to fly up out of there. It was overbearing. It was too much. So we can have high hopes and aspirations of doing things, but if we don't look at it for what it really truly is and see that the things that are happening right now and where it's going, then we're going to really have a real catastrophe with our people. Just stay tuned. We're going to get into that, right? So now let's look at some of the stuff that they said here, right? That's what these people sitting here talking about. They sitting here talking about, you know, that they were talking about how that there is you always notice that they always go with Martin Luther King, that Martin Luther King said that the content of the character and not the color of their skin. Now, the reason why I was saying that about the history is that what we've gone through, and then how you bring somebody else in, and then we had to compete, and our children got to go with them. And then let's say the things that the people who did what they did as the impression and the people and the descendants of them, now that you're trying to ain't nobody really making no amends. What they want you to do is to have amnesia and talk about it and act like that didn't happen and move forward. But I'm here to tell you that if you try to go forward and not recognize all the things that took place, then what happens is you're going to have a generation that's going to look at us and say that it was our lack there of doing, instead of just really looking at what really took place. And so what I'm saying is, now that you're trying to make some amends, some people say success. And in order for us to have any success and to move forward, again, as diversity says, everybody but white folks. And that means that cuts them out. So that means when they were sitting there talking about race and they're so proud and they only hire people about race, it's only because of what their ancestors left for them. Their ancestors left this as their inheritance. Meaning the only way that you can get this clear is there got to be a period of time with the people who've been oppressed, the people who've been disenfranchised. In order to make any amends or try to make this better, you're going to have to go through some of the things that they put. And so, can you imagine that? They're tired of a little bit when people like ourselves have 2 weeks. Okay, let's say we say 1619 is the count. That's 400 years, right? That's actually 404 years, right? And you can't even take we can't even say 50 years, right? Because getting in the game in 65 is just the beginning. We're just now starting to get a little politically astute. We're just now trying to use the apparatus of politics and trying to we still have not even gotten people to represent us. We're just talking political, but we still have no representation. And yet other people are starting to line up. You're seeing Asians lining up. You're seeing the Hispanics lining up. But everybody's gearing up to making sure that we don't get that, right? If those for those who want to play politics. But here they have a problem with this. They say, now, this got to stop. No, look, now, so what they're going to do is play the reverse card. Now they want to say, oh, now they're playing race. They're going to do everything. But Martin Luther King said, by the content of their character and not by the color of their skin. Wait a minute. Y'all like using Martin Luther King, but damn, I wouldn't be, okay, I know damn well you was 80% complicit in his killing. Let me say that again. Damn, they like using MLK to talk about content of your character and not the color of your skin, but we know that there was 80% complicit in his demise. And so to sit there now and try to say, well, we're losing because of what your ancestors left for you, so then you must not really want equality. You don't want to make really amends and just want to be a byword of things to be said, but when it comes into application, it's become hindrance. It's becoming a problem. And so what you're going to hear is, as time keep going on, they're going to keep saying things that making it look and appear as if like they're being threatened and that we're after them and that we're trying to kill them. Listen to what I'm trying to tell y'all here now. Listen what I'm trying to tell you here, right? I ain't gonna tell you what I heard. I'm gonna tell you what I know, right? So they go on and they having this conversation, and they talk about how you heard her say that about them being proud of having people by the race and blood and genetics, and that these same principles of this genetics She went and talked about who? Adolf Hitler. She went and talked about Adolf Hitler, equating that to people getting jobs, getting in positions, and said that this philosophy of hiring people based on their color and creed and diversity and Xing them out is kind of like a reference to Germany and Hitler and Adolf Hitler and them. Ain't that something? And then she said, we've seen where this philosophy can lead. Now, wait a minute. What are you talking about? What you talking about? How you going to sit there and talk about, say that the philosophy of hiring them? This is all trying to make up amends or repair about what your ancestor, if her ancestor is, remember she's an American Samoan. So your ancestry really is kind of half of this, not full of this, right? And so what they laid down, if you want to make this what y'all say, but I know that's only code talk. They don't really want that, but that's what they're saying. So she said that also that, now listen to this. Remember when you heard her say, unless you do those who came late, need leaders who will select characters and who are committed to the Constitution, right? Let me say that again. Need leaders who select on character and commitment to the Constitution. Now, okay, so the character, what's wrong with the character? Oh, because these people said about race, and again, this is, again, the melting pot, and now letting other people, other than the way it had been going back prior to the 60s, when it was all white, and now that you started getting the browning of America, they call it, then you can't take it now. So now you're saying we need to stop this ain't good, and that you equating this to some kind of, leading up to something that happened like in Germany, right? And then you say, well, why don't we start getting people in positions who are leaders to get people who are committed to the Constitution? Now, let me tell you something about that Constitution. A lot of people, you'll see people that's black like yourself, they talk about that Constitution, and they'll tell you that Constitution is for you and I. Go and look at the origin of that Constitution. Go back and really just read it and study it. Don't put it in the mind's eye of what you want it to be. Read it for what it is. Let me say that one more again. Don't read it for what you want it to be. Read it for what it really is and what it's about. As I told you, the 13 colonies that expanded, that became what we call the United States. And what that Constitution talked about was about that state, the 13 states. The colonies were 13 states that consolidated together and became unified, and called it like a municipal corporation. And in that municipal corporation, the Constitution was for those inhabitants, those white people, and their descendants. So when you hear that code word, Constitution, it means white folks. It means white folks. So anybody who be sitting there saying all that stuff, they ain't telling you the truth. See, you telling people what you want them to believe, but what is it really about? Well, stay tuned. We're going to get into all that, right? So anyway, again, they need people to come in there to commit it to the Constitution, to do, she said, the job they were hired to do. Now, what is she saying? Remember, there's an influx of people coming from other countries. And remember, as I showed you what Joe Biden said in 2015, that in 2017, that they would become a minority. So how do you fix the minority? You need something to replenish it, something that we can put on paper to make them to be, so we can get the numbers, right? So that was part of the fix of that. But what happened is these people came in here, and these people started to have their own visions and started to look for their own positions and how to get for themselves. And so that plan might be backfiring. And we've seen it. We see it. But see, they know they fucked up on that. I know they fucked up on that. See, if you'd have just dealt with us, there would have been no problem. But since you didn't deal with us, now this is going to be a problem. And I'm going to show you what I'm talking about as we move on, right? So they want them, they said, now we brought you here from your third world status. We brought you here to hire you so that you could be to serve the American people. Again, what I tell you what the American mean, go look up American. You know what American gonna say? The original Americans are the indigenous copper color people, right? Then after it said that, I think I go to the 1845, I think 54 Webster's Dictionary. And when you look up American, Americans say the indigenous copper color people, which is going to be us, the 4,441,830 descendants, which nobody's going to say. You're going to keep telling you about this damn story about you came on some boats from Africa. But that's another topic for another story. So what I'm telling you is that you were the ones that they were talking about. But then in that Webster, the second part to that says, well, they no longer the Americans. They said now the American is the ones who are the European descendants who are now the Americans. Now, how do you take somebody's place? It sounds like the Esau Jacob story, like we sold our birthrights for a bowl of soup. Let me say that one more again. The way that you go and look at the Webster Dictionary and look up the word American and it says the copper color people, they say, well, that no longer applies to them. It now applies to we, the white people who took their name. And now we are the Americans. So now, if you think I'm lying and saying that the American means white people, go look for yourself. And so that's what they're saying. They need people. They brought them here so that you can come here, hired to do the job you need to do, and then you need to facilitate and uphold what this is always about. That means about us. See, ain't nobody going to talk to y'all the way we talking over here. Get them lights up, put that share, subscribe, and all that good stuff, right? So anyway, let's move on. I got plenty here to go. So don't leave yet. Don't touch that down. Right? So, okay, so now she goes on, she says that, right? And then putting service after that. So what she was saying is they were putting themselves before what they were brought here to do. Are we seeing that? Are we seeing people coming here like those of us who are avid watchers of my show? There's been people, and again, I'm not anti-African. I'm not anti-Caribbean or any of that. But I'm going to call ball a ball, a strike a strike. We see people come here who get in politics, who look like are our skin, but they have a different agenda. They come here talking about, they're campaigning, talking about they want to get rid of Black American history. Right? You want to get rid of your Black American history, just like what's happening in Florida with the CRT. Which we will be touching. And we got people coming from here talking about giving us their sob story or how he was poor in, let's say, Jamaica, and I came here on an airplane and then we lived in the Bronx and then now here I am, I'm the first governor. But first thing you're doing in your campaign is you attacking the things that deal with FBA, ADOS, autochthonous indigenous, Black Americans, Moors. You're touching those things. So again, that agenda that was laid by them when they were going to bring the influx of the immigrants here had two folds to it. And I'm going to show you, they had two cuts to that. One was to help them in their numbers, and two was going to bring a buffer. But see, there's some of us in the corner who say when people start to say about some of them, right? There is some of them that speak openly and bad about us, and it is our damn job to check your ass when you out of pocket. You come up to my house talking that bullshit, I'm gonna let your ass know you got to go. That don't mean I hate you, you just out of pocket. Maybe you drank a little too much, right? Maybe you drank too damn much, but you gotta go tonight, right? And so that's what happens. So we go on a little campaign, we set the thing straight, and what ended up happening is subsided. They shut that shit up. They quiet it down, right? So it is what it is, all right? But again, that's no hate towards them. They got to understand, we the majority here. You're again, but my last show I showed y'all that is about what? Immigration is a business. They pay money to come here. They paying money for applications and all. That's why you seen in New York, why they was putting them up in them hotels, right? They pay money to come up in here. That's the United States hustle. So in one sense, when those of us who like to say that our ancestors worked and toiled and bled and sweat for them to come and get the benefits, that's not true. They come in here because that's the hustle that the United States used to get them to come in here to do what? To come and undermine, and replace us. So let's go on. Since you think I'm telling a lie, let me show you. I ain't gonna tell you what I heard. I'm gonna tell you what I know. Right? So anyway, so she says that they have to focus on, right, the traditions, the democratic values, right? Well, what is the democratic values? Well, we know that they, black people were under the assumption that the Democrat was for them. But as time has gone on, because a lot of people say, well, black people always stay with the Democrats. But you got to remember, by the time 1965 come in, right? That's the first time we're voting. Now, they tell you back in the 1800s you could vote, but that wasn't everybody was able to vote, right? There were certain people who could vote. That wasn't all of us able to vote. So here you is from 65 up until, let's say, well, now, what was that, about 50? Let's say 50, what we have, 57 years? If you do times 4 or you divide that by 4, how many presidents have we elected? Or how many presidents elections have there been? Which we really, as citizens, as the population, don't vote for president and vice presidents, right? That's fool's gold too. But anyway, let me move on. Let me get off that. But anyway, so let's just say that be what it is, right? So she's talking about the tradition, that the democratic values, that the power that went to their agenda. But he said that they don't look at us, they only look at themselves. Now, all this time we've been here, what were their people doing? It was all about them. It was not about us. Now you finally get a chance to try to make some gain in it. They want to take it away from you. It's funny, just like these other people come here with affirmative action, they are benefiting off of what was given to us. And now they in the Supreme Court trying to take away what was set for us. But nobody can say it, because why? You'll be anti something if you said something about it, right? They make you anti. So anyway, that was the conversation between Jesse Waters, and her name is Tulsi Gabbard, right? That was that conversation, right? That's what they doing. So, okay. So what are they really saying? Well, this is what they really saying in hindsight. Check this out.
We're living through the most political moment in American history, but stories like the one you just saw transcend politics. We don't know who anyone in that tape voted for, but we know exactly how they felt as human beings, afraid and alone. And that's what happens when the government ceases conducting its most basic duty, which is to protect its citizens. And they won't. They won't protect you. They've said that out loud, and everybody knows it. Again, no matter who they voted for. And so increasingly Americans are having to defend themselves. And once again, anyone who tells you you can't defend yourself is your enemy. So here's an example that is amazing, and we think you'll agree that it is. In Tampa last month, a woman called Nishali Alma was working out in her apartment complex's gym. And because she's a kind person, she let in a man who was trying to open the door. That man then attempted to rape her. You're seeing the footage on your screen right now. Now, Nishali Alma did not have a gun. She was in a gym, but she's extraordinarily tough, and she was able to fight off the man who was trying to rape her. His name is Xavier Thomas Jones. Thomas Jones was later arrested after he tried to rape another woman in the apartment complex. The resilience and the strength you see in that video is so inspiring and so perfectly captures the best part of America that we wanted to speak to Nishali Alma tonight, and she was gracious enough to agree. She joins us now. Nishali, thank you so much for coming on. Anyone who watches that video, and again, it's not a political point, but just has to stand back in awe at your ferocity. How did you summon this? So this man is bigger than you, and he's totally determined to hurt you, and you literally fought him off. What were you thinking?
In my head, whenever it was happening, I wasn't really fearful at all. In my head, it was just I got to fight him. I got to do something, you know, and he was equal to me. He wasn't bigger than me. He wasn't anything more than my size. And I kind of took that to my advantage, to my own head, and I fought him.
There's a moment in the tape I've watched like 4 times. It's so interesting. He comes towards you, and he hasn't even grabbed you yet, and you determine this guy is going to hurt me. He's an enemy. You don't lie to yourself. You just immediately go after him. Why? And a lot of people don't do that. They lie to themselves. Why were you able to know exactly what this man's intention was?
Right. It's because my mom always told me, don't let anybody ever approach you or touch you if you don't know them. And as soon as he approached me, I knew I had to push him off or do something.
Yeah, well, you certainly did do something. And the guy just finally gave, you were so ferocious with him that he just finally gave up.
Yeah. After a little bit of wrestling on the ground, I yanked out his beard hairs and he eventually gave out.
So what, I mean, this is the scene I think that a lot of people, women particularly, fear. You're alone in the gym at night and some rapist comes in and tries to literally rape you. What advice, having lived through it, would you give people watching?
You know, like I said, some people forget their key fob and they do let people in for their kindness of their hearts, but always be cautious, always watch your back. And if you're ever in that situation, fight back.
Amen. Amen. Fight back. That is, it's just wonderful. But thank you for what you did, and congratulations on succeeding.
Thank
you. All right, so we back, right? All right, so that was that situation that happened up in Florida. Again, we're not here to condone about the incident that took place, but it's some of the language that was being spoken in there when he was talking about the most political moment in U.S. history, right? Right? This is what it's coming down to, because again, as I'm trying to show as we go on more about the influx of what was used as to be the replacements to help them numbers is backfiring because they're starting to have their own agenda. But I said it's twofold, because why? You have those that come from other places and say those who look like us. Again, I'm not against, you know, my Caribbean brothers and sisters and those from the continent. But again, as I told you, the hustle for the United States of bringing other immigrants here is about money. So they don't come here, and you can't expect them to have the same fight and same plight that you have, that they're going to be up for. Otherwise, they wasted their money. So what is the twofold to this? So again, let's say the dog whistle that's being stated here, there's a political movement in the United States. And one is losing power, is doing everything to regain power, while other ones are positioning themselves, and another one is trying to, well, say, block another one because it has numbers, but it just doesn't have the representation, right? So as you heard Carlson Tucker talk about how Americans are afraid and alone, right? So he's dog whistling, right? Because those who were around, remember when they had the Willie Horton commercial, right? When I think it was George Bush Sr. was running, and they were using Willie Horton to throw the scare in the white people. As again, you see your image on your screen there. Now again, everything about skin ain't not kin, and this is not to be divisive. Now let's say, for instance, that individual that you see on your screen is not a Black American, part of the 4,441,830, and he's one of our, you know, let's say relatives from the Caribbean or the African. But when they show that story, he falls in the Black American category, right or wrong. He falls in our category. And so when he falls in our category, that means that we take the blunt of it. That means other people get to dump their, let's say, they get to dump their trash in our yard, and we have to be the one that clean it up. And we the one that get the stigmatization from it, right? Because haven't you noticed that when there's certain achievements that's being done, they know how to make sure that distinction that, oh, this person, it's like, what's the name that's on the Black National Anthem? They made sure to say, oh, she's of Jamaican descent. And this other one, they hear, oh, they're from the continent, they are, you know, they make sure that, but when it's all negative, it just automatically falls in the category of Black Americans, right? So there's some subliminalness being shown here, because I would like to think that, well, you being a Black American, and I'm not saying that we don't have those amongst us who would try something like that. And I don't even really know if that's really what that was. Because when I did my due diligence and looked at that story, it didn't say that he was being arrested for that. But this is what Carlson Tucker has said, and she's too gibberish and right. She's too damn gibberish for somebody who was under a situation to be raped, right? She didn't seem like that's what it would seem like. Whatever it was about, they said he agreed and said that he was doing it, but I didn't see the charges of that. But they just said he agreed he was trying to do that, and there was somebody else in the building, which means he lived there. So was he mental? We don't know, but they used this story and they put it out there. And so you hear Tucker dog whistling. He said Americans have to defend themselves because he said government, right? He said government is not protecting them, so they're feeling alone and they're feeling afraid. Because why? The demographics is changing. As they were talking about earlier in the diversity, that the demographics, because of this immigration and the influx of it now, you're seeing people like, let's say, Ron DeSantis is not old stock white. Remember when Carlson Tucker was talking about old white? That was you talking about the old white stock. Those are the ones that, again, that had the descendants of those who came from the ones that was oppressing our ancestry, right? That number is getting small, right? So you have people like Ron DeSantis and many of them who are Americans by immigration and citizenship, by born here, but they're not from the old stock. And so what's happening is maybe they done decided, hey man, we can take this for ourselves. It's kind of like looking at what happened when Castro used to be with the United States, and then they got in Cuba, and they said, shit, we can take this for ourselves. I mean, matter of fact, quite a few countries have done that. They was working and then end up taking it for themselves, right? Matter of fact, when you look at the story of the Moors, that's what happened with them too, right? That's how they got up in Spain. But that's for another topic for another time. So anyway, so you hear that he's dog whistling, and then he's saying that we have to defend for ourselves against our enemies, right? So he's kind of whistling and saying that, just like she was in that situation, being alone, black men come out of nowhere, attacking you. Who's there? Nobody's there to help you. You had to fend off for yourself. So we're kind of losing power. You know what I'm saying? Do you know there's a term that was going back in slavery? They used to call it Drapetomania. Drapetomania was when a slave didn't want to be a slave no more, he ran away. And they said the reason why they diagnosed you with Drapetomania is because they said that you started to get uppity. You start thinking that you was equivalent to them. And so that made you feel a certain kind of way. And so it's kind of, he's kind of dog whistling that to some degree. And it's like, okay. But my thing is, I want to show you as I talk about this more and going, we're going to get into more parts of this. But for those of you, when y'all see white women and they got you in some kind of way, don't be feeling like this.
Greg said that what are they preparing them for? They're preparing them to beg for reparations when they're older. This is laying the groundwork. These CRT cartoons on Disney Plus is laying the groundwork for a younger generation of black Americans to demand reparations when they're old enough to do so. Yes, black labor in the South contributed to an enormous amount of wealth for these plantation owners. Black slavery built Southern railroads, ports, but not a lot of white people owned slaves in the South. And it was abolished in the North in like 1804. It was never even in the West. So, yes, they contributed to building parts of America, but so did the Irish, the English, the Scotch, the Welsh, the Germans. Everybody built America. And when you say who built something, well, who designed it? Who was the architect? Who financed it? Labor's just a part of it. So if we're going to have a conversation about reparations, which I'm open to since I'm 1% black.
Yeah, that's true.
And I might get a check. You have to talk about it accurately.
Ain't that something? See? Okay, so people want to admit the fact that our ancestry built this country, but you didn't really, it's not really because of you. We all built America, right? Everybody felt like they did their contribution, right? If it's already built and you coming to benefit from it, what part did you build? You can't come to something that ain't built. You have to be there from its inception. And so because you bring and you can make tacos, or you can, I don't know, whatever the things that people bring in here, right? That don't mean that's not a contribution to the building. That's just you with capitalism, right? That's you helping to make more taxes and to have set up a shopping business for you. But there was a place for you, for refuge, for a lot of them that play that game of immigrants or immigration. They come here from asylum seeking, right? Or because there's no such thing really supposed to be about economic help. It's really about either you being persecuted or you come up with seeking asylum, right? And so under those circumstances, you didn't have a place of safety if there was no place built. But see, that's what happens when people disrespect us and our ancestry and don't want to give the due credit and then shy it off with some nonsense. Well, let's look at some of the stuff he just said, right? So again, they saying that we're preparing the babies, or they're preparing our babies to beg when they get older. Now, there's some black folks out here, when it talks about reparations, they say, oh, y'all begging the white man. Wait a minute. Do you know what due mean? You know when you get a bill, you know what due mean? Right? Due. When you got a bill means due. Like, it's about paying, right? You need to be paying us. So why is it that what doesn't happen, people try to make it seem like it's some kind of charity case? It's like you not owing. When they send you that damn bill, you owe that, right? They put it on the taxes on your credit, right? They put a lien on you, right? For your taxes, right? So why is it not the same thing when it comes to when the same conversation happened here? Why is it something to just be written off? Well, where it's just like, in a store and somebody stole some product, you just write it off. No, you can't just write that off, because there's a lot of cause and effects that happen because of the ordeal, right? But he's saying that they're preparing the young ones as they get older for reparations. They talk about how CRT and Disney cartoons are really grooming and laying the work down for those children. Now, let me show you something now, right? Because when you say that, like Walt Disney, now those of us who know about Walt Disney, matter of fact, I use their own people. Let me show you this. Let me show one of their greatest actors said, right? Here's one of their greatest actors. This is what she said. Meryl Streep, right? Was Meryl Streep correct in calling Walt Disney a bigot, right? This is Meryl Streep. This is the top echelon in that field when it comes to that actress. That is their queen, right? She called my man a bigot, right? That ain't me, right? That's Meryl Streep, right? Right? That's her. And she was just saying that if those who've been watching and know about Disney and look at all the stuff that they did, how you gonna say in your mouth that Disney is helping black folks about trying to breed so that they get big, so they can get reparations? They ain't never been on our side, right? I don't know whose side they on. Matter of fact, remember the magpies, when I see an elephant fly, right? Remember all that, that giant mag bird talking? And there's plenty other, when you go back, matter of fact, the NAACP had to go back for a lot of the things that they had, and not that I'm using NCAAP as some kind of organization for black people, because again, that's why they use the word color. And then as time moved on, color don't mean black no more. I mean, everybody's like diversity. NAACP, NAACP is anybody's like diversity. It's anybody but black Americans. Am I right or am I wrong? Right? So yeah, so if you saying Walt Disney trying to help breed our children so that they can get something, that's a lot. That's a lot. But you made me like, well, what is he talking about? They breeding our babies. Now check this out.
So Judge Jackson, all of us will agree that no one should be discriminated against because of race. when you just testified a minute ago that you didn't know if critical race theory was taught in K through 12, I will confess I find that statement a little hard to reconcile with the public record, because if you look at the Georgetown Day School's curriculum, it is filled and overflowing with critical race theory. That among the books that are either assigned or recommended, they include Critical Race Theory, an introduction. They include The End of Policing, an advocacy for abolishing police. They include How to Be an Anti-Racist by Ibram Kendi. They include literally stacks and stacks of books, and I'll tell you two of the ones that were most stunning. They include a book called Anti-Racist Baby by Ibram Kendi. And there are portions of this book that I find really quite remarkable. One portion of the book says babies are taught to be racist or anti-racist. There is no neutrality. Another portion of the book, they recommend to babies confess when being racist. Now, this is a book that is taught at Georgetown Day School to students in pre-K through second grade, so 4 through 7 years old. Do you agree with this book that is being taught with kids that babies are racist?
Senator, I do not believe that any child should be made to feel as though they are racist, or though they are not valued, or though they are less than, that they are victims, that they are oppressors. I don't believe in any of that. But what I will say is that when you asked me whether or not this was taught in schools, critical race theory, my understanding is that critical race theory as an academic theory is taught in law schools. And to the extent that you were asking the question, I understood you to be addressing public schools. Georgetown Day School, just like the religious school that Justice Barrett was on the board of, is a private school.
Okay, so you agree critical race theory is taught at Georgetown Day School?
I don't know, because the board is not, the board does not control the curriculum. The board does not focus on that. That's not what we do as board members. So I'm actually not sure.
Well, and I'll note that the board is chaired by Professor Fairfax, your college roommate who introduced you yesterday. So the two of you serve on the board together. Another book that is on the summer reading for 3rd through 5th grade is a book called Stamped for Kids, again by Ibram Kendi. I read the entirety of the book, and I will say it is an astonishing book. On page 33, it asks the question, can we send white people back to Europe? That's on 33. That's what's being given to 8 and 9 years old. It also, on page 115, says the idea that we should pretend not to see racism is connected to the idea that we should pretend not to see color. It's called color blindness. Skipping ahead, here's what's wrong with this. It's ridiculous. Skin color is something we all absolutely see. Skipping ahead, so to pretend not to see color is pretty convenient if you don't actually want to stamp out racism in the first place. Now, what this book argues for is the exact opposite of what Dr. King spoke about on the floor of the Lincoln Memorial. And are you comfortable with these ideas being taught to children as young as 4 in respect to the first book, as young as 8 and 9 in respect to the second book?
Senator, I have not reviewed any of those books, any of those ideas. They don't come up in my work as a judge, which I'm respectfully here to address. In my work as a judge, which is evidenced from my near decade on the bench, school.
All right, so we back, right? So that was the back and forth between Ted Cruz and Ketanji Jackson Brown, or Brown Jackson, right? And once again, she's in that position where, again, as a judge just getting the job, and they in there inquiring her as to her affiliation about a board position she got. And so, again, they're being very persistent in the fact that, again, that they believe that there's a replacement trying to happen to them. Now, see, they want to play the victim. And it's like using CRT as the crutch when you heard her say that that's really about law school. But so why are they trying to equate CRT with history when really that's because law is intertwined. When you read history, you need law to see how they was establishing legislations and how that history pertained to it, if you really want to get down to it. But trying to use CRT as some kind of front, that's a lot of nonsense. But you heard in that dissertation between those two going back and forth. Hold on. Did you go there? Okay, yeah, go there. That's fine. All right, so you heard he said that, again, he showed you some of the books and things that they were talking about, right? That, as to some of the publications that they're putting in school. Now, the thing is, a person who's sitting here listening to that will think that they're talking about public schools, right? You're thinking they're talking about public school when he talks about Georgetown, but that school that they were talking about, the Georgetown school, was a private school, right? That wasn't a public school. And really, when you think of the history of private schools were those schools made for white people's children, so they would not go integrated. When integration happened in the 60s, they created a lot of those private schools so that they didn't go to school with black children. Let me say that one more again. A lot of those private schools were created when they come out desegregation, so that when they didn't have to go to school with the black children, they went to the private school. So he's trying to say that they're teaching the CRT in this one particular Georgetown private school, which may be in a district that maybe a predominantly more blacks. I'm not sure. I didn't see that part, but I know she's affiliated with the board. But he's using that as his example to say that what they're pushing this ideology to say that, like he said, to make a baby, right? Remember he showed this, right? He showed Donald Trump signed executive order to establish a 1776 commission to instill patriotic education. Let me say that one more again. Did you know? Oh, they cut the sound out? Uh-oh, wait a minute. They might say, somebody said, okay, he said cut the sound out. Somebody give me a warning if you can hear me right now. I'm pretty sure they're gonna do that. I'm pretty sure they were gonna do that. Right? I'm pretty sure they were gonna do that. But anyway, somebody let me know if you can hear me or not? Can I be heard? Can I be heard? Somebody let me know, please. My man right here, Wildfire Penny put up, said no sound for about a few minutes. Okay. Okay, so you can't hear me now. Okay, thanks a lot, Wildfire Penny. Appreciate that. Okay. So Donald Trump he did an executive order, right? And this executive order was to establish a 1776 commission. Now, the word commission, for a lot of y'all done heard about HR 40 in the reparations commission. And there's people from the black corner who are anti-HR 40 commission, right? Now, if you're an avid watcher over here, I'm going to tell you that is the only legislation that we have that we could have push, that we can have push to get, if you're really serious about trying to get this reparation. That's what John Conyers did. John Conyers put that in motion because he knew the time would come. And as this thing is widening out and the diversity is happening, it's getting harder and harder for us to have representation. So let me show you some other stuff, but let me show you what Donald Trump did here, right? All right, thanks a lot, Wildfire Penny. Appreciate that, bro. Or sis. Either way, I'm not sure what you are, but you cover both. So again, Donald Trump did the executive order, and he wanted to say this commission, he wanted to establish how American founding story should be taught in school. See, they're very afraid of what our history will do to their children and those to come later on when they find out who their ancestors were. So they're very working. So again, the replacing is trying to take our history and not to establish it. Matter of fact, I believe what Ron DeSantis is trying to do, because of the HR 40, and really be on the next process to get it to the floor for those who paying attention, is to have Ron DeSantis and them to establish that history that they're trying to do in Florida, and then have that as part of that commission to say that they did the study, because that was going to be the one that's going to be the curriculum that goes through all the school systems. So that would be the one that they can use for HR 40. You heard it first right here. Now, there's some of our brothers and sisters out here who against HR 40, but I'm just telling you what other legislation is out there that could be used other than HR 40. So here's Donald Trump in, let's say, opposition to that. He put this out there, and he was talking about the 1619 project. Now, let me tell you something about the 1619. You know, they always tell us that the 1619 was the beginning of Black American history, right? But that's not true. That's not true. Now, when you talk about Florida, Florida is another part, because you got to remember, Florida was first by the Spaniards. That's another different history, and that predates 1619. You get what I'm saying? So what they're trying to do is they're trying to skew that history so that part don't get taught, and then take you back to Virginia and start the 1619, or really it's 1654, because when you know the history, that failed. That 1619 with them in that colonies and going in there, that went bankrupt. They was out of there by 1624. So where's their slave trade when you went bankrupt? And then you come back and reestablish that, and then it don't get popping until about 1654. So where's this slave trade? But that's another topic for another story. For those, if you ain't subscribed, you better subscribe. We do it all over here. But anyway, so that's what Donald Trump was doing. He was in opposition because they know as time go on, the possibility. So this executive order, they're going to establish a commission. They're going to have 20 people on it, and they're going to put it under the Department of Education. Now check this out. They're going to promote patriotic education. Now patriotic. Now who are the people that always claim they're the most patriot in this land? See, that's what I'm saying. There's code talk, right? Code talk. Who considers themselves the most patriotic? It's those people, right? Them people, right? They say they the most patriotic, right? So he said he set this commission up, and they're going to establish this. And so this commission is going to be responsible, they say, and they're going to, the main principle about this commission is to make sure that the so-called American founding story, right, is established. Because you know we're coming up on 250 years of celebration of the anniversary of the United States, correct? You right about that, Wildfire Penny. You 100 on that, right? So you know that we're coming on 250 years of the United States being established. So Donald Trump put this in play so that this would be part of, if the HR 40 goes in effect and that history goes in effect, they want to establish this. So they said that they said the federal is going to require that there be a priority for those schools who teach this. They will get resources from the government for teaching this patriotic education. All the schools that will be teaching this will receive funding to celebrate, they say, Constitution Day. See, the truth is, it got two parts. It's their version of the truth, and then there's the truth that would happen, correct? And they know that if their children are to learn really what took place and what their people really are, you talking about how our people have self-hate and don't like ourselves? We can see a lot of this on TikTok. You can see there's a come to Jesus moment by a lot of them telling about things that they know that they're trying to tell the truth on. But when this become established education, and when you're sitting in the classroom and you're them, they're going to feel some kind of way. And they know that's going to bring some kind of psychological issues and problems. So they're working diligently at this, and there's other things in the making to, they're going to do too. So here with Donald Trump, again, people say, well, Donald Trump has never exuded anything to say anything against Black people. But sometimes just because somebody don't say something directly that you don't catch them, don't mean that may not be in their heart and their mind and their spirit. Because they believe, and as he was talking about, they were saying that the history that will be taught by Black Americans, or the history of Black Americans, is misconstrued. It won't be the truth. So what is it about our history that they say that what we talk about, or what is our history, is so offensive, right? Because they're saying that our accounts of the history is going to make the founding story to portray as a systemically racist country. Let me say that again. They said that Black American history is going to be misconstruing how the nation's founding story is systematically racist, a racist country. Now, we can only tell our story and what took place. Now, if you want to whitewash it so that it's more, let's say, have better taste for you because the medicine ain't tasting good, that don't make that to be right. And that's not us doing that. That's just the insurance policy that your ancestors left upon you. You can't put that on us, right? And so they also believe that the states should have the right to whether they teach Black history or not. They believe the teachers have the right to say whether they want to teach it or not. And they said parents get to choose. They should be able to choose whether their children should be able to attend. Let me say that one more again. They look at all these safety nets that they're trying to establish. They believe the state should have the right whether Black American history should be taught. They believe whether the teachers, right? Whether the teachers should teach it, or it's up to the teacher whether they want to teach it or not. And then they say, well, whether the parents. So they're doing every way they can to try to keep us from being taught, right? So we have to be aware of this. We have to be mindful and aware that these things are out there in public. Because, like, again, let me show you real quick. About, again, as I said, this here. Now look at this. Now I want you to see this, right? This is the HR 40, right? But look who says sponsored it, right? It's talking about Sheila Jackson. Now, Sheila Jackson is supposed to be now sponsoring HR 40, right? And this is the commission, right? This is the HR 40 commission, the commission about reparation. Matter of fact, let me show you what it says as a commission, right? Right? A commission to study, right? And you can see it on your screen as it pops up on your screen. Now, with that being said, now Sheila Jackson is Jamaican. Her lineage is Jamaican, right? Now, there's nothing wrong with that. But again, Jamaican history is not the same equivalent to the United States. And everybody seems to do that. And again, I'm not being divisive. We have to tell it for what it really is, because if we don't tell it for what it is, then people are miscuing, like they say, we're miscuing their history, they're miscuing our history. I seen somebody today talking about some stuff, and he came from another country, and all the pictures and stuff he was talking about was our history, Black American history. And I'm looking like, oh, tell us your history. Why does everybody refer to our history as their history as if they don't got no history? So I kind of question, is it the same when everybody say we came on boats and all, but your history ain't the same as our history here. And yet everybody make it equivalent. Then they try to say, well, you guys are being pompous and being proud and saying y'all think y'all better than, no. We are the descendants of 4,441,830. We are today the descendants of those. And if you're not part of that, that don't make us, we hate you. That's just us being, proud and being descendants and giving honor and glory to what our ancestors and who they are. And so when you come here, as an asylum seeker, you come in here as somebody trying to have a better life. When you talk about priorities, when you're talking about a lien on a house, priority should go first to us before anybody else. But it seems to have reversed the role, and we're last, and everybody else is getting fed first. It's like saying going to Big Mama house, and all your friends and people in the neighborhood, she feeding everybody, but our own children ain't eating yet. But she making sure everybody else getting their plate, they getting their second plate, they getting all that stuff, and you sitting there like, well, when we gonna eat? And so everybody get mad because we're sitting here saying, hey man, we ain't ate yet. And so they got a problem with that. Somebody get some mess. It's the hijack. Okay. You right, brother. Oh, hold on. Let me give you some love, bro, because you coming with it, right? You put in there, right? We pay our people, right? Came with the well, right? Then we're gonna put down here. And then you put down here, right? Right. It's the hijack, and that's what I'm talking about, right? Again, what is today? My show about today? My show is about. No, don't go there. Don't go there. Don't go there. Right? It's the what? The all-out replacing agenda. You saying hijack? I'm just saying replacing, because that's what it is. They're trying to replace every facet that we have established as a people. They're taking it. They're doing it. Was from hip hop. Remember, we had to get out here. We had to clean that up. Wait a minute, hip hop might have been in New York, but that music didn't start in New York. That is how they. I heard some people say that hip hop you talking about when you started up showing your ancestors going in the 30s, 20s, and 30s, that ain't hip hop. Well, wait a minute. As a baby, you start to crawl before you learn how to walk. You don't just start and be hip hop because you in New York. You had to crawl. You had to start off between what we're saying from, okay, so let's say from preaching to gospel music and every other genre that we created up until you get up in there from the great migration coming out of the South, going up into these cities, and then that taking that with them, and then being in those times of the 50s and the 60s, and then inventing due to that time, and you create. If you don't have that in the homeland from which y'all come from, how can you say you invented something when you can't even show the, let's say, the blueprint? Or matter of fact, you can't even show us if this was a CSI. Show us, trace us back to where you come from and show you y'all was doing something like that. You come here, that means you must be watching the dominant. What they doing, you mimic. So you don't create, you're just an imitation of it. So why does everybody think that our stuff, we can't, it's like anytime that we want to have something just for ourselves, it's everybody upset and mad. Oh, you guys, but y'all have your own thing for yourselves. There's certain, all of y'all that come from other places have things that is just solely for you and yours, but Black Americans can have nothing for themselves, right? We got to share everything, right? to the fact that people get up in our face and telling us that it's no longer ours anymore. And then we have other people who use other people to try to sabotage and take it and see if we're not going to say nothing. And then when we say something, we're divisive, we're hateful. Get out of here with that, man. Get out of here with that, right? But that's how it goes, right? So again, let's look at the fact that the person who they got sponsoring the bill. Now let me show you the hijack that you're talking about, Wildfire Perry. The hijack is, look at the person who sponsored. I told you who originally did it. John Conyers originally put in the HR 40 after, in 1988, what you have is when Ronald Reagan and them signed the HR 442, which was the Japanese, when they gave them for the internment camps. John Conyers said, well, damn, they paid them. John Conyers went and put a bill in for HR 40 in 1989. Now you see the bill on your screen. Look who done hijacked it and now saying she the one that sponsored. Let me say that again. Did you hear what I just said? Did you hear what I just said? John Conyers is the originator of the HR 40 back in 1989, because when 1988 came, that's when the Japanese got their commission, the HR 442, which Ronald Reagan and them signed and gave them their money and put that as part of education. John Conyers seen that and said, well, damn, if they paying them, why they not trying to pay us? So he put in the HR 40. That bill sit there since 1989 till John Conyers died, and now they reinvented, bringing somebody who's not part of us. Now she done introduced the bill back in January 4th of 2021. Now she looking like she the one that established it. They don't even have his name on there no more. Why is that? Is somebody trying to hijack that? Are they trying to find a way to get in there? But if you look at how it's showing you on your screen there, let me take that one down there, brother. Take down so they can see that clearly. Yeah, take that down. So you see on there, on your screen, it was introduced. Now, they're supposed to take it to the floor, but see, ain't nobody advocating for that. Everybody that you hear in the corner keeps saying, well, HR 40 is nothing but a study. But guess what? That's how you get paid. You have to go through the process. That's the only way the government gonna pay you. So as long as we sit here saying, don't do it, they ain't gonna do it, right? It ain't about how many people co-sponsor it. They don't have to have nobody co-sponsor. They just gotta take it to the floor and make them vote. And what we do is when we see who don't vote for it, now this is how you use your politics. Everybody who against us, we against you. So when somebody, a representative from some state and we from that state, we vote against that person because you against us. You see how we supposed to be playing the game? But that ain't what they want you to do, right? So anyway, that's what that is, right? So that's the HR 40. So just like they do in the commission, they're gonna make it education, and that's what this is gonna do. It's gonna be part of the education. So this is why I'm trying to tell you that what Ron DeSantis and them is trying to do with that history is they're trying to get that set up to be, let's say, made for them the way they like it tastes. And once that get established, that will be what the commission is going to use when they pass the HR 40. You get what I'm saying? That's what they're going to use. But that ain't really the true history, because Florida history is different from the Virginia history. It predates Virginia history. That's a whole entire different history. That's Spanish history. That's not England history. You get what I'm saying? So you got to watch how they doing stuff. Got another message in here. Okay, right. Okay. Oh, you right with me. Okay. All right. So let me move on now. Right. So that's what that is on that. Right. Because let me show you something. Right. Again, the Florida history. This history that's down here is entirely different from what they're talking about in Virginia. If you know your history, it's not the same history. That's the Spaniards that's coming there in the Floridas, right? When Florida was all that area that you see was called Floridas. There was an east, west, north, and south, the Floridas, right? There was no Virginia at this time. Remember, they come on to the Carolinas, and then our ancestors whooping their ass, and they had to get up out of there. And then you got some of them that they call Maroons from that expedition leave. And then you got some that coming later on in 1560. I think it's like 1560 something. There's another expedition that's coming from those from Cuba. We're bringing 100 from them from over on the either Haiti or Cuba that come here. They get ran up out there and they leave some of them there too. You get what I'm saying? So I'm telling you, this is different histories. And if you don't know history, you're going to see how they're going to choke. They're going to hijack to hide this one, because this history in Florida could be also part of this history. Let me show you something real quick. Anybody know what that is? Do you know what that is? It's called the last sigh. What's the last sigh? What is the last sigh? Is it that the Moorish history? What about them conquistadors, them black conquistadors that was part of them that came on them expeditions? Did they come into Florida? Did they set up shop in Florida? Were they there? But then nobody gonna never talk about that, right? Right? They could be there just as well, right? Okay, so that Florida history is entirely different from the history that's over there in Virginia. But you got to know that. You have to know that. That's why it's important as a Black American. What do you call it? A Black American, indigenous, indigenous, Moor, ADOS, FBA. It is your job to make sure you know the history, to know the story, because why? Ain't everybody here to hijack from us. It's your job. Yeah, the conquistadors, right? There was the black ones, right? Those the one that was Spain, the one that was converts, the one that converted, right? So anyway, being with that said, right? So with that being said, so that's what they believe in. So they got to make sure that this is done and over with. So, okay. Now, let me show you something about, remember, I showed you that, no, go to that one. Remember, I'm showing you that Sheila Jackson is the one who's sponsoring, right, the HR 40. She then hijacked it from John Conyers, and now she's is the lead dog for HR 40. But look, let me show you this. Did y'all know this? Let me show you something. Let me show you something. Did you hear this story here? That the Chinese citizens in Texas are incensed over a proposal to ban them from buying property in the state. Let me say that one more again. Chinese citizens in Texas are incensed over a proposal to ban them from buying property in the state. Okay? So they had came up with this in Texas. They try to pass legislation to keep out Iranians, to keep out Russians and Chinese or North Koreans from buying up the land, because they're doing a land grab over in Texas. So they're trying to bring up legislation. So they indignant about this, right? They having their problems about that, right? Now, let me show you who was out there with them. Let me show you who was out there with them. Huh? Can you see? Can you see who out there? Can you see it? You probably can't see that. You can't. Can you see that? I probably can't see that, right? So let me go ahead and give you a little close up. Let me see if you can see that part. I see they got the delay on now. Yeah, because I'm going in. They gonna do that. Do you see who that is in the red? You know who that is in the red? That's the same one that's in the front of your HR 40 bill. She over there now. The AALC is the American Asian Leadership Coalition, or what is that? Conference, I think it is, right? It's the Asian American Leader Conference, right? Like the NCLC, right? Where the king in them was right now. Everything they do, they mimic what we do. And look who there. Now, again, I'm not anti-foreigner or immigrant, none of that. But I'm going to call a ball, a strike. Now, not too long ago, we was being deemed as the ones that was the one attacking them, where they was able to get the COVID bill and put them inside the COVID bill and give them protection, and saying that they were being attacked by black people, when we know damn well the people that was in Georgia killing them in that spa and some of the other things was not us. Yes, there were people, again, just like the sister, not sister, but that woman that was in Florida that was getting jacked up by that man, and what he looked like. Was he a black man? Was he Black American? We don't know. Same thing when it came to the Asians being attacked. Was they Black Americans? We don't know. But we know that they put them in our column and we had to be the one, the face of it, right? They don't get to put it on them. So that's why a lot of people are upset when you say FBA and ADOS, when you try to make that distinction as to want to be our own group, they say, oh, y'all being divisive. Because what happens is now when they do these stories, tell who they are. So that now we can say, see, we know that ain't our people. Our people don't do no shit like that. We do some crazy shit sometimes, but that shit we don't do. So then you carry your own shit, right? But you see who that is in the front there, right? She's right there, right? So-called, right? The so-called, right? Okay, right. You see Al Green. You talk about Al Green. Al Green in the front. You got Al Green, not the Al Green, but that's Al Green, the politician. And then there's Sheila Jackson, right? And they out there representing them. Okay, ain't nothing wrong. That's politicking. Now, if you using this to get in there so that they can help to pass HR 40, I'm all for it. But otherwise, it looked like a coalition because, again, you got to know where they come from, who they allying with, and who they in front of, and they can prevent from getting. So I'm just like, well, if that be the case.
If it was really meant to be, don't force it. It will happen naturally. Don't force it. What will be will surely be. Don't force it. If love was meant for you and me, don't force it.
So now, once again, we're talking about this, right? Again, two sides to that immigration part. We understand that one side, it was the numbers, and now they turn it against. And then you have the other side, which is those that look like us, but they also kind of got their own agenda with the things they doing, right? Did y'all see this story here? Did you see this story here where Idris Elba says he no longer calls himself a black actor because it puts him in a box? Let me say that one more again. Idris Elba says he no longer calls himself a black actor because it puts him in a box. Well, what other box do you want to? What other box do he want to check? Is there another box he can check? When you got, again, according to the rules in here in this game that they call the United States, which is a construct, I understand that you want to say nationality and all that, but in this game here, this caste system called the United States, this is a color game, no matter what y'all try to say. Now, I understand about going into the courts and all this. I get all that. But like I said, to be protected, a class, it falls under color, does it not? Don't mean just because you call yourself that. Again, we not calling ourselves because of that. And a lot of people say you call yourself color black because of a color. No. Those of us going back, we don't call ourselves black because of a color. Black is an essence. Black is what I am. Black is what I identify as, not because of a nationality. It's just because it's kind of like saying an X, like unknown, right? But we coming to know now, right? We coming more to know. We're not taking just the story anymore about somebody telling us 1619 and coming on boats and all that. There's more stories than that one there. And matter of fact, they ain't never told you where the slave trade started at. They just tell you the Atlantic slave trade, but they don't tell you where it's at. But if you stay tuned over here on WeUpReport, we touch all that. Not this one, but we will, right? So anyway, Idris Elba says that, right? Idris Elba, right? Again, brother that come over here from England, right? Because they don't have a Hollywood over there that he can go on. So he come over here and he says, well, I don't want to be labeled and put in a box, because that he believes that by calling yourself black, and again, there's many of our people who feel like that. When you call yourself black, you think you limit, you Xing yourself, but it doesn't matter what you call yourself, it's how they look at you. Calling yourself, even if you identify with a nationality, when they still look at you, those that really matter, that really calling, that's really the wizard behind the curtain, that's really running this, it is what it is. And there's some people who say that the people behind the curtain is us, or people that's like us or look like us. Until they're revealed, I have to see what I see and how they playing the game. Now, are they the puppets? It's most likely it can be. But if that's the game you want to play, you accomplish to it. You know how it is. We riding in a ride. Police pull us over. Everybody pull out your ID. But you're the only one driving. No. I need to see your ID, your ID, your ID, right? I need to know who everybody is in here, right? Well, same thing here, right? So anyway, he's saying that he don't want to be identified because why? It puts him in a box. Well, we've been in that the whole time. We've been here from the inception before there was a place called the United States. And see, when everybody come over here, see, you don't want to identify with that because you know there's a stigmatization that comes with that. That correlates, goes along with the history that entailed with that. So you want the benefits that come from what was made off of it, but you don't want to take. Again, Paul Mooney said that, right? Everybody want to be a nigga, but nobody want to be a nigga, right? Right? Everybody want to be a nigga, but nobody want to be a nigga. Meaning you like the hip hop, you like the swag, you like the language, you know what I'm saying? But you don't want the history and what it entails and what it embodies. Seven Spirits that came up here. Put Seven Spirits up there. What's up, my brother Seven Spirit? What up? He said, what up, fam? I came in late, but I'm gonna catch the replay. I appreciate that so much. Salute to you, sir. Salute to you. So Idris Elba said it, but now check this out. Now he says that, right? Now that's what he feels. Again, he came here, he played The Wire. I mean, it's funny how motherfuckers can come from somewhere else and got an accent, but then when they get to that role, they know how to mimic. They know how to mimic us really good, right? Like that motherfucker be practicing, you know. The mimicking came down. He played a hell of a damn drug dealer. And we like, damn, he ain't one of us. No, he ain't. He from over there, right? Okay, so we gave pubs on that. We gave his pubs on that, right? But then now check this out. Now here's somebody who came from where he is. Now anybody ever seen that? I forgot the name of that damn movie he played in. He fought a motherfucking monster from outer space. Y'all know what I'm talking about? Remember Moses, right? Moses. Right, he fought the damn monster and shit. I forgot the name of that damn movie. But John Boyega, right? He checked him. He had to check him. He was like, "Wait a minute, man. Hold on. Wait a minute. This is what John Boyega said. He said, I think we should fixate on who is typecasting and putting actors in boxes because of this, not on making weird adjustments for them. We continuously focus on what we have to do so they don't do this or that. Very worrying. We black. That's that. Let me say that one more again. John Boyega come back and then he says this when he said what he said. I think we should fixate on who is typecasting and putting actors in boxes because of this, not on making weird adjustments for them. We continuously focus on what we have to do so they don't do this or that. Very worrying. We black. And that's that, right? See, all this adjustment that a lot of us be trying to do. See, we're not black. That's a color, brother. That we is a nationality. It ain't about you going in no dictionary and talking about what it says. If somebody, again, this somebody else's house, they done hijacked your house, they done made new rules, they done kept a gun to everybody, said if anybody move, so what you gonna say? I don't live here. Let me just walk up out of here and let's see if he pop your ass. Let's see if he pop you or not. He may not pop you. You might be like, oh, you crazy, I'm going up out of here, right? But that's who done hijacked it. So whatever game day is, you playing until you get to the position where you think you can overtake and do what you need to do. So you can say that for your own psychology. A lot of them need this because they got to make themselves feel like the 4,441,830, that was back then. Has nothing to do with me. I ain't descendant of them. That was then, and I'm different. But you can't tell me the day, month, and year that it all stopped. It's a figment of your imagination, and they play with you all day long, right or wrong. So that's it, right? Black is black, and that's just that. So why don't you focus on that? Who's making these rules? The ones who are putting you in the box. You say, I don't want to be in the box. Well, okay, so you just want to be actor. Well, that's the same thing as American, right? Same thing. You have a hyphenation on your American. So guess what? You got a hyphenation. You don't want the hyphenation. I'm not saying that it's right. I'm just saying that is the name of the game. Until you can control the game, until you're writing the rules of the game, and you spend all this time, like he say, fixate on trying to get them to change. Well, there's a reason why they can't change. You still ain't figured that part out yet, though, right? So anyway, let's move on.
Tell you a story. Once upon a time, a man got fucked. Now, how is that for a story? Because that's the story of black people in America. Shit, you all don't know you black yet. You think you just people. Let me be the first to tell you that you are all black. The moment these Dutch motherfuckers set foot here and decided they white, and you get to be black, and that's the nice name they call you, let me paint a picture. Land of opportunity, milk and honey, and guess what? You all get to be slaves. Split up, sold off, and worked to death. 100 years later, you're fucked. 100 years after that, fucked. 100 years after you get free, you still getting fucked out of job and shot at by police. You see what I'm saying? This guy gets it.
Doing a great job with the heart these days.
You're late again, Eddie.
I know what you've been trying to do. You ain't gonna do it. See, Big Red done pulled my coattail to you a long, long time ago.
That's bullshit, Eddie. You're talking crazy.
Crazy like a mother fox. And you, I can see through your jive ass like glass, nigga.
Eddie, you got it all wrong, man.
Stealing my moves. My style, nigga, even trying to riff like me.
Hey, man, why don't you get your boy out of here and detox him?
You want my spot flash? Slum-dwelling, scum-sucking, slug-ass motherfucker. You want my spot flash? Huh? Well, you ain't gonna get it, cause you ain't got it.
You know I need some money, gotta get the money, cause I need some cash in hand. Come on, gotta get it. You know I need the money, gotta get the money, cause I need some cash in hand. Come on, gotta get it.
We are back. And so I got this story here. I've seen some people kind of touch on it. Did y'all see this story here? Where the Get Out, Black Colorado rancher faces domestic terrorism by local whites who they say are trying to steal their land, right? Say that one more again. Get Out, Black Colorado rancher faces domestic terrorism by local whites who they say trying to steal their land. Now again, that's part of our shit, right? That's what it is. Seven Spears said that's crazy because he played a Baltimore street dealer on The Wire. He played the part so well on The Wire that I didn't even know he was from overseas. That's what I was talking about, brother. That's what I was saying. I mean, he played it. You couldn't even tell him when he get out there. He was Oi Boy Bachoy and Crumpets and Tea, and I was like, damn, that nigga like that. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, but that's the way I looked at it. I was like, damn, okay. Man, he over there from Benny Hill land, okay. But it is. But I say he played a hell of a role, and we took him in. Then he's playing Luther, so we thinking he from, but he not. That's how well his acting is, right? And we have our own people who act too. But we got a name for that. But see, he acted, so he get paid to do that. But we talking about those who probably representing us that get in positions and they be doing what they doing. But he did play a hell of a job. You couldn't tell the difference. But anyway, but this brother here, right? Him and his family, they went out there, they got that ranch and stuff, right? And that's always been right. Anytime, like again, if we don't know the history and the newer people who coming up, especially I'm hearing a lot of this conversation where some brothers want to demonize some of the older ones. Now, again, I'm gonna tell you, everybody who old don't get respect if it's not earned, but just because you older don't make you the one that you say you don't respect, right? Some say OGs and all of that, okay, but sometimes some are worthy of their respect, and when they're trying to help and give, they doing that because they know they've been where you are. So it's not really about age, because when you think about it, grown is grown. Ain't no difference between an 18-year-old and a 99-year-old, other than the fact that the 199 gonna live longer and seen things a little bit more. Grown is grown, right? So we got to get out of this old and young. We just got to say, when we all on the same mindset and we on the same agenda, whether I be 100 and you be 30, we all go in the same direction. I just might have seen the world a little bit more than you, give you some advice. I may not have to lead, but I can be counsel, right, in certain situations. And so we have seen these type of stories in our history every time when we build. Because see, again, a lot of times people say, well, we could have did these things already, like they people ain't smart enough to have already tried these things. There's, again, preventable measures. There's things legislatively that they put. There's things in the law. So there's always a, intertwine of shit that always stop us from our progression. Yes, individually we do certain things, but you don't see collectively. That's why we're in those positions, because we can't collectively do, because again, they watching, right? So anyway, so this brother was doing, he went, I think, got 1,000 acres. Just imagine what 1,000 acres you could do if you can get your people on there and then create a municipal corporation where it's just you and you get to control. You make your own police and all that, right? You got your own administration, right? That's what they don't want. They got to know what you're doing, right? So there's some people that I've seen on the YouTube who building their little conclave. They got their acres and stuff like that. And don't think that they ain't put somebody in to infiltrate you. Don't think they didn't. You get what I'm saying? It's a great idea. It's supposed to be done, because why? We need that. We need to have these type of things for our own, to have schools that it's kind of like, okay, the ideal of Umar Johnson, the ideal, okay? I said the ideal of having your own school to teach your own curriculum for your children, because everybody else seems to know how to do that, and then they know their objective and know what they're supposed to be doing. But when you let other people teach your children, you don't know if they're throwing a monkey wrench in there, right? You can just imagine that, say you don't like a certain people, but yet your profession is something that has something to do with the development of them. And you know this. Can I not still teach you and teach you in a way that make you still some way in your development that it hinders your growth? See, these are the subliminal things of when you're being infiltrated that can be done, and it takes time. Think about if somebody teaching you how to read and they don't teach you how to say the consonants, how to say, CH sound and the ST sound. So, and they just write it out and tell you, whatever you say. So you go through life until you get to a certain age and you find out that the things that some of the teachers taught you was wrong. The same thing like parents. Some things that parents might have told you, you find out later on in life that wasn't right. Now, do your parents intentionally try to tell you something not right, or that's just the information and the knowledge they know? Sometimes it's just wrong information that was given to them that they done passed down. But when you're a profession or professional, depending on the quality teachers that they're getting, because say like a public school, they can get the worst D, they can get the D- teachers and throw them in front of you, and all you see is the teacher, and not knowing that you might be smarter than your damn teacher. They just know the curriculum and they know how to pass the paper out and mark the test. But that don't mean, you understand? There's always different ways to do this, but we don't think on that way when we're talking about war and how people can use shit at you like a war tactic, right? So again, 1,000 acres, black men trying to be out there that people say, no, you can't have that. We can't have you to have that kind of land because you could do a lot with that, right? Right? But, they did this one. I remember back in history a little bit, they did this before. Some of y'all might have remembered or know about it. Do you remember this here? You ever heard about this? Poison is suspected in death of 30 cows on a Muslim farm. You remember when the Nation of Islam, when they were trying to buy a farm, and they went out there. I think originally they tried to get a 3,800 acre farm. In this particular farm here, they went out there and they were poisoned, doing the same thing that they did that brother up in Colorado. Did them the same way. To the fact that the animals, they were shooting at them. And come to find out, who wanted it? No, hold on, go there. No, you know who wanted it? Look, that's who wanted it. That's who wanted it. They said they would sell, but that's who really wanted it. That's them the ones who really wanted it. They the ones that wanted it. So maybe that's probably what happened up in that Colorado. You understand? Because remember they end up arresting him, right? Saying that he was, keep calling and falsifying and all that. They end up, right? Because he was in this district. He's in this little municipal corporation and they controlling all that. And they're like, what you doing over here? And who sold you this? And so we're going to get you up out of here. Matter of fact, that's what happened with the Nation of Islam. It was a doctor and somebody else, a dentist or something like that. They sold, a car dealer. It was a dentist and a car dealership. They tore his dealership up and ran them up out of town. And they end up had to sell it to get up out of there, right? So maybe that's probably what ended up happening right there. See, like I said, everybody want to, they like mimicking us. They like the swag and all that. But when it comes to this history and what we have a deal, we talk about Rosewood, you talk about Oklahoma, and there's plenty of more that didn't happen over time with us. So these things are not new. And then to think about you got 1,000 acres and you out there by yourself. No, you can't do that. You got to have peoples with you, right? Think about 1,000 acres. That's a lot of land. You could do a lot of things with that. You could be self-sufficient and you could be away from shit and you could be building shit. And, as much as people try to say they, pull yourself by your bootstrap and do what you want, they don't really want that. Because if that would have been the case, they'd have gone ahead and let that happen from the get-go. But they didn't. They had to bring in something in between to keep you from doing it because you better than them at building and doing that. And matter of fact, that's what we had been doing all that time. So just imagine you would have let us do and be free and let us do what we need to do. I think we're going to build better than you. And nobody wants to see that, right? When it's all said and done, that's what it's really about. Nobody wants to see Black Americans because let me give you a picture, mind's eye picture. Could you imagine Black Americans had money, had homes and businesses? What else would you see? If they could be stable economically, not worried about being on the street, and had their own business, we ain't got to worry about working for nobody, what would we see? We can't even imagine that. You know how we could take cars and we make cars look a certain way? What would we do if you just had the free time and money to do what you really want to do? You know how we is competitively. You know how we like to outdo each other. You probably see some gold ass cars and platinum ass. You get what I'm saying? I mean, you see some shit that the dealers can't make. You're like, what? You get what I'm saying? So nobody wants to see that. Nobody wants to see us at our peak, at what we really can do, what really the Most High has put in us to fruition. Nobody wants to see that. As much as they try to say, oh, I'm cool with Black, but they don't want to see that light that's in us to its fruition without any constraints by them. Because you don't know. You remember that those who read the Bible and talking about, let us go down there and stop them because they'll build the heaven? Who you think they were talking about? Because that wasn't the Most High saying he got to come down there and stop us. That was somebody else from the other side of the river saying, we better go down there and stop them because whatever they're going to build, we ain't going to be able to stop them. Has that been the agenda? Has that been the agenda? Maybe. Maybe not. Well, all I know is... You better get it together or leave it alone. Give me that one more again. Give me that one more again. You better get it together or leave it alone. If you don't want my loving, I'll be gone. Get up, get up, get up. So, I got 2 more things. We're going to get up out of here for the night. But check this out. Now, there's a lot of our brothers and sisters who like to say that, they need to get up and go, right? They think that sometimes the grass is greener on the other side, and that the people that they say of their descendancy they say they're going back home to where their ancestors. Now, again, do you not know that we've been here 20 generations? Now, you may not can't find them doing your search and going back and find your people, but let's just say if 1619, let's just take the 1619. A generation is 20 to 30 years. So we're going to say it 20 years, a generation. If you do 20 generations to now, you're getting 20 generations. If we just say, well, let's say if it's 30 years, you're going to get 14 generations. Now, we got people coming here who 1, 2 generations, maybe 3. We 20 to 14 or 15 generations. And most talking about I'm going back to my ancestors on the continent of Africa. You got more ancestry on this land than you ain't gonna never find. Because you know what's funny is they go back picking a place they want to go to, but you don't never find the people who you related to. So I'm going trade in that for what they done laid in this ground and they done gave up for and not fight for this. But I'm going to go over there and say, I'm going to take this American dollar and I'm going to go over there and I'm going to build a live up as if you don't know the game that's going over there. What you talking about, Mr. Blow Your Mind? Well, look at this. Check this out.
What makes African and third world debt different from the American debt? Number one, America's never going to pay its debts. It doesn't have to. Its debts are in its own currency. We can simply print it. The African debt is not in its currency. The African debt is in U.S. dollars. Africa has to earn the U.S. dollars, and the only way it can earn the U.S. dollars is not to be assassinated for growing its own food and becoming independent and doing something that the United States does not like. The principle underlying the foundation of the World Bank, the International Bank for IBRD, research, the World Bank, is that no country should grow its own food. Africa and the third world should only grow export crops. To export, in order to have an oversupply of cocoa and other tropical raw materials, to keep down the price, they must buy their grain from the United States or Europe, so that if they do something that we don't like, we can do what America tried to do to China in the 60s. We can sanction them. We can say, we're going to starve you. We're going to not export any grain to you. So owing their foreign debt in dollars means that they have to somehow sell something that the United States wants, not what they want. I think the most evil organizations in the world today are the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund. And my book, Super Imperialism, that I wrote in 1972, is all about that. The largest purchasers of the book were the Defense Department and the CIA. I was immediately, the organization I worked for was given a $75,000, $85,000 Defense Department contract for me to come to explain to them how American imperialism worked, and they used it as a how to do it book. They thought it was just spontaneous. I had written the book thinking that socialists in third world countries would do something about it, and indeed it was translated into Spanish and other languages. But it was really the Defense Department that applied most of this, and I was amazed when I was invited to the White House to explain how imperialism worked. And my boss said, we've run rings around the British imperialists. This is how to do it. You make them owe the debts in your currency, not their own. You control their central bank and make them financially dependent on you, and then you've got a stranglehold for them. So certainly the third world countries should cancel the debts under the odious debt principle. I haven't been able to convince any of them to do it because they said if we do that, the CIA will kill us. So how do you break that cycle?
There's also something we're suffering from in Africa, the devaluation of currency as a way of keeping us dependent continuously.
That's a good point. When a country devalues a currency, what are they devaluing? Well, you know, there's a world price for grain, a world price for aluminum, a world price for raw materials. The only thing that they can really devalue is the price of their labor. So when Africa or Latin America or Greece is told to, or America is told to devalue the currency, what that means is pay labor less. You have to squeeze out more to pay the top of the economic pyramid, to suck it all up to the top 10% or 1% or 0.1%. So devaluation is basically an anti-labor policy to prevent a domestic market and prosperity from developing. That is why China and Russia are saying, we don't want to be part of the dollar area. We want our own currency, and we'll only borrow in our own debt. Last time I went to China, it was a little annoying because they insisted in paying me in yuan, which all these little red bills that you have to go to a bank to turn in, and yet they said, well, we're following your advice. What do you complain about? It's a good idea, but at least they don't want any part of American sanctions.
All right, so we back, right? So that was, again, this individual here was telling you that the difference between white nations' debt and African continent's debt is that the United States, let's say, has never paid its debt because why? It makes its own money. So when they sit here and tell us about this debt, right, in this country, the United States are going to always be in debt because that's part of the game because all they're going to do is keep printing their money. But the thing about Africa is Africa gets its money from other nations that print it for them, which makes them to be what? In subjugation to them other nations, right? So everybody who talking about picking up and running over there, you better understand this. Not saying that not to go to Africa, just understand, because didn't they just make a bill recently or a law saying that if you go over there, that you still paying taxes for all that American money that you use over there, you still got to pay taxes for using their money? That's why a lot of them lately, if you start to hear some of them changing their tone as to saying they're going to Africa lately. So Africa currency is not in its own currency. You got 54 countries over there. 40 of those countries, money is printed by the UK, France, and Germany. Let me say that one more again. 54 countries, 40 of those out of those 54, UK, France, and Germany prints their money. The other 14, Britain prints their money. Okay? So what they do is they make them dependent on that Western dollar, and that makes you owe them. You can't pay them with their. It's like, you know how the game is played with that. What did they call it? The what place that the what's the name of the place that they make the money at? Slipped my mind real quick. But the place here, you know, where they make the money at, where they print the money. You can't pay them with that money. So think about this. The national debt is made on the fact that the money that they print, that we use, that you use your labor, right? Because again, they try to downplay labor ain't nothing. Just like, remember Jesse Walter said, well, yeah, you guys built it. It was just more about labor than anything else. So you downplay labor like labor ain't nothing. And he talked about oh, you couldn't have the architect and design. Well, shit, without labor, I don't give a fuck who the architect is. You ain't got nobody to build the shit. What good is his drawing? You understand what I'm saying? So that's the thing that they try to play with. They try to downplay the fact of labor, but the thing is, that's what they look at the continent is, a labor. This is a source for labor. And so they devaluate it. And the fact, he said, that's really what, when you come out debt, you can't use that debt to regulate anything else, because he said everything else is already set price. We talk about wheats and grain and all that. The only thing that the debt, and when you talk about inflation does, makes labor cheap. Ain't that something? This dude told you the game. Matter of fact, he said he tried to tell these other countries, but they told him, say, look, man, we can't do that, because if we do that, they're going to get rid of us. So we can't get out of it. Matter of fact, isn't that what Gaddafi tried to do? Gaddafi tried to get them to get on and change their money up. And what happened to Gaddafi, right? Matter of fact, what's his name? Hugo Chavez, right? Well, look at him. He tried to take all his money up out of them banks They got rid of him, right? So again, the game rigged. But those for those who don't really understand that, right? You don't understand that, right? So if you think that's an option, that you think you're going in and running and you're saying that because what you see, black people, but what's running it is not them. They're not running it. You know, I seen a video where somebody who was from the continent and they was talking about how they weren't part of, you know, they were not slaves and they don't know what it is. It's like, what history you talking about? From 1885, the scrambled Africa, who was all them white nations and what was they doing to y'all in there? See, people come over here and try to sell that game to us like they look at us like we the only ones that been through it. We just the only ones that are still our home when you come from somewhere else up under us. And then when you come here, you act like where you came from, that didn't happen. Or maybe they got amnesia, or maybe they might just be the ones that we call here sellouts. Maybe they just selling all their sellouts over here because they can't stay there once they get found out. They got to get up out of there. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe, right? All right, anyway. But enough of that. But the point is, if you thinking that running there is going to be, you know, your savior, they done beat you to that. They already got that in the money. Everything that you taking and you taking, and then the thing is, it's looking like y'all don't even realize y'all infiltrated. You're taking the American dollar and then you taking it over there and reinvesting, and that money is the money they got to use in order to facilitate their damn their establishment, well, let's say their country. They're running it with this foreign money. Their money no good nowhere else. And they in there setting up shop up in there. So if you think you're running there and you ain't thinking it's the long game, all right, you're going to wake up one day, you're going to figure it out. Matter of fact, figuring it out was this young brother here. We're going to probably begin to, we're going to get to the end of the show on this one. We at the 2:26 mark. So did anybody see this interview here?
He took the field last night before the game, and he was there with the healthcare workers who treated him. He showed his love for the women and men who saved his life, and he and I talked about the moment that changed everything, and also what's next for him.
And action.
Buffalo Bills safety Damar Hamlin has come a long way since collapsing on the field during Monday Night Football just 6 weeks ago.
Now another Bills player is down. Maybe Hamlin.
The 24-year-old surviving sudden cardiac arrest as millions watched on live television.
Well, this is the last thing you want to see.
Let's go back to January 2nd. How were you feeling before the game and when you were out there? Normal?
Super normal, feeling great.
Can you tell me what you remember about the game up until the hit?
I remember the things that we were focused on going into the game, just trying to get a win.
So in the course of the game, you have the hit, you make the tackle. Do you remember standing up after you make that tackle?
That's something I don't really want to get too deep into in the details of.
The ambulance is out there on the field, and they are intensely working on Damar Hamlin.
Assistant athletic trainer Denny Kellington, he came out and administered CPR to you, alerted everyone else that the situation was pretty serious.
I owe Denny my life, literally. You know, him just, you know, he loves to say he was just doing his job, but, and which is true. That night, he was literally the savior of my life, you know, administrating CPR on me. And that's something I'm truly thankful for, and I don't take for granted.
Have you gone back and looked at the video of the hit?
I watched it once or twice while I was in the ICU, but I really couldn't watch it too much. So,
and what was that like to watch that?
Just a crazy feeling, something I can't even describe yet, something I'm still processing, something I'm still trying to work through, you know, why it happened to me.
What is the first thing you remember when you started to wake up?
Just hearing family members, my mom, my dad, friends that were there, just kind of hearing certain people, certain conversations around me, and, you know, just trying to tie it all together. The first thing I said when I woke up was, did we win? You know, I was thinking about that.
Do you realize, when I saw that, I said, okay, he's an athlete. He's committed. Because you wake up and you're sitting there going, did we win? Your mind is still on the game.
I'm competitive. I'm playing with my full heart, everything I got in me. That competitive nature in me was just still just thinking about the game, and I just wanted to know, like, did we win? Like I said,
what did they tell you?
he said, I won. Yes, I won. I won the game of life.
Yeah, that's true.
Mm-hmm.
Did doctors ever come to you and say, this could have gone another way?
Yeah, pretty much when they, just even saying, you won the game of life. That just kind of put things in perspective for me, hearing it from the doctor. Things could have went differently in the details of the situation of everything that happened on the field. It could have been the last of me.
Your doctors in Cincinnati, they called your recovery remarkable. 3 days on the ventilator, your neurological function is intact. I'm sitting here talking to you today. I feel like I wouldn't know anything ever happened to you. Why do you think your recovery is so remarkable?
First and foremost, just God, just a blessing, I'm just thankful he gave me a second chance, just to live normally and just, not just come out almost without a scratch on me, just to be able to keep going.
After Hamlin was discharged from the ICU, the question on so many minds, what caused his heart to stop beating? You're 24, peak physical condition, could run circles around me right now. How did doctors describe what happened to you?
That's something I want to stay away from.
How did doctors describe what happened to you?
Just stay on the line. I believe something's on your mind. There's something on your mind. Tell me. Girl, stop wasting time. I believe something's on your mind. There's something on your mind. Tell me. Just stay on the line. I believe something's on your mind. There's something on your mind. Tell me. Girl, stop wasting time.
That's something I want to stay away from.
All right, so we back, right? Something was on his mind, right? Something he can't say, something they say we can't talk about, right? But from some of us, some people that lost family members, some people that had family members who were dealing with it, that had issues. This seemed ironic. Sometimes they say that it has something to do with our own contributing factors from our own bad health, right? But some of us, we believe, right? We kind of know, right? But let me show you something, though, right? Let me show you something here. Now again, I'm a talk, but I'm gonna show you. Look on the screen, right? So, there had been a story that broke, right? There's a story that broke. I want you to look at your screen as I talk, right? Look at the screen, right? A story had broke where something came out, right? And that individual you see on your screen there, he had said some things that broke. They got rid of that story, y'all. They got rid of it. And so that whole thing with that train crash, with all that steel and the fight that went down, there was a whole lot of stuff going on. There was a lot of chaos happening, right? That diverted a lot of this because it was out there for a minute, and, he said some things in that interview. If you can go find it, right? What you're seeing on your screen, if you can go find it, right? I'm gonna tell you that, he said some things and they had to shut that down. And it seemed to come right out around the same time that that brother was talking about with his interview. This came out too. And so it's just, well, you know, I see the corner didn't really touch it. I just gave you some screenplay of it. The channel gone, you know where it is, why it's gone. But I ain't really say nothing. I did show you something, right? Because I'm the most hated show in the black corner of YouTube. Been in the business for 11 years. You ain't never seen me. Because, yeah, anyway. Yeah, anyway. So the thing is, right, something he couldn't talk about because he said he didn't want to talk about it because it's bigger than him, and he said he didn't want people involved. But if you can find that part and find that video, it may tell you everything that I see that wildfire penny in there. I know what you're talking about, bro. And I don't put everything up because it put you on there, you know, to start blocking everything from you, right? Hope to see more comments and see you back in here again. But that's what it is. We all have our assumptions about what could have been the contributing factor. We've seen that football and the hitting itself, you know, could it have caused that? It's possible. You know, things happen. Freak accidents happen, right? But it could also be some other thing. But would they ever tell you that? No, they're going to come out with fact checker. And fact checker going to say, well, what you believe ain't right and what we said is, right? Okay. But anyway, so that's going to be pretty much my show for the night. I appreciate all y'all being here. But I did start the show off with one part, right? About them two brothers, right? Man, them two brothers at the beginning of those who was here at the very beginning of the show. And them two that was sitting there and they was doing that stuff that caused a big, you know, rise in our people. And they was, matter of fact, some people, they protested enough, they got this channel taken off. So, you know, we got to be mindful, man, how we out here portraying ourselves or not. We don't know whether these people are Black Americans or not. And again, this ain't about being divisive. It's just about, we're not going to allow certain people to be, you know, using our credit, right? You know how, like, you know, the old saying was, you know, mama and them put the light bill and cable on your name. And then by the time you get old enough, your credit tore up because they done used your credit. Well, that's how other people are doing. They coming in using our credit, messing up our damn credit, and then we the one got to be sitting here trying to repair it. So, of course, we did what we supposed to do. Some people didn't like it, but we did what we were supposed to do. So as I'm going to get out and do this show here, again, I'm going to appreciate each and every one of y'all. Hope y'all subscribe, like, share. If it's your first time, come back again. We would love to have you over here. But this is for them two brothers as we get up out of here. Again, I'm MrBlowsurmind. This is WeUpReport. To the next show, y'all. To the next show.
The enemy has only images and illusions, behind which he hides his true motives. Destroy the image, and you will break the enemy.